Hello, hello, and welcome to First Timers Movie Club.
Hey, welcome to the club. It's great to have you. We love people in our club.
Indeed. I'm Lolo Loren.
And I'm Patrick Poe.
And this is the podcast for film lovers by filmmakers. Did I do that right?
You're pretty close to it.
You usually say that part.
Yeah, we're people that make movies.
Yes.
And we love movies.
Yes.
And that's why we make them. But we also love watching them to learn how to make them better. And so we kind of do that here.
Yeah.
We watch movies. We talk about what makes them great. And we're excited to have a guest today.
We do have a guest for today's episode. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we have everyone favorite guest.
Indeed. Amber Joy.
Yeah. I was going to say more about her, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
Amber
Did I
Joy.
jump the gun?
No, I liked it.
We all know who I am at this point.
Yeah.
It
They already
goes
knew. When you
without
said
saying.
favorite guest, they were like, we know who it's going to be.
Yeah, she is a part of IX. She makes the movies with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our most recent sketch we shot, she crewed some shots of it alone.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But
You're
before
right.
that, we should announce what we're watching today. Today, we are watching the sci-fi revolutionary film. I'm trying to hype it, and I don't know what words to use.
Those are good words. I like those words.
We're watching The Matrix.
I love it, which I have seen.
And I've seen.
And I have not seen.
What? What? How have you not seen that movie?
Plot twist. I haven't seen it.
We didn't know that. Oh, that's what we do here. We show it to a person that hasn't seen it. We did
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
It's like we planned it.
Cue the music. All right. There we go. We announced the episode. We know who's here. That's exciting. We do have some stuff to talk about. Should we talk about? Do you want to talk about the sketch? Do you want to tell them about the sketch?
We just shot our first sketch with our new upgraded camera gear.
It's so pretty.
And it was really fun to break out our brand new camera for a sketch, play with it. We had some vaxxed and tested friends come over and shot a really fun thing. It was great. It was just a lot of fun.
Yes. So, Scary Stories for Adults. Hopefully it's out now, actually.
Yes.
Hopefully. Maybe it's there on the YouTube.
You guys are in the future right now.
Yes.
And hopefully you're living in a future that I like, and that's a future where this sketch is done.
If it isn't out yet, or even if it is, it did come out a little later than planned.
Yeah, because we got the stomach flu.
We did.
All three of us.
Yeah.
Plus another actress who was on set.
Yes.
And now
4
your
of us.
mother.
Yeah.
Everybody gets stomach flu. You get a stomach flu, and you get a stomach flu. I'm like the Oprah of stomach flus.
I don't know if this is an okay thing to find funny, but I personally did find it funny, even though it was a really horrible stomach flu. I didn't find it funny during the stomach flu, but after I was like, it is funny that we had this shoot where we were so careful and so safe about COVID and testing and only working with vaxxed people, and then 4 of us came down with stomach flu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But it was good to know because like I'd already tested myself for COVID like the day before I got stomach flu. So there was never any panic. Like, oh no.
yeah, no, just stomach flu.
I posted about it on my Facebook, and I still had 3 people that were like, you should still get tested for COVID. And so I did, and it
you
wasn't.
did test again. And
Yeah, I
it
tested
was-
the Friday before I got stomach flu and the Friday after. Twice in 2 weeks. Once a week.
Yeah.
Regular testing. makes a boy grow strong.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, it was a good shoot.
Yes.
Like you said, we had very little crew. The whole crew was you, and you. I pointed at everybody in the room. It was me,
Yes.
Amber, and Lolo.
He did. He wasn't lying. He really did point.
Yes.
Yeah. And me and Lolo are in it.
Uh-huh.
You can watch it now on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Indeed.
Hopefully. And so I built out a pretty cool little rig for our new camera, I thought.
It was very cool. I felt very in control of everything and also not in control of anything while running it by myself.
It had 2 different stands, one that held a microphone all on its own, so it was a boom pole holder, one that just held the zoom so that you could be your own sound mixer, and you could move that around with you, and then the camera was set up so that it was very one-man usable. Everything was made so that you could be a one-woman, one-man crew, and I liked it. I like that setup.
Yeah, and when you had a free hand, you could pick up the BTS camera and also run that.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You posted a really good photo on the IX Film Productions Instagram if anybody wants to see the one-man setup.
Yes, go see that. It was really fun. I'm pretty proud of it.
It's a sight to behold.
So go
look
watch
at it.
Scary Stories for Adults too.
Also, talking about YouTube, we kind of have an announcement.
Oh.
And that is that we have decided that
Drum
if you're
roll.
listening to this podcast on YouTube, starting after this episode, we will no longer be putting this podcast on YouTube.
Correct.
Yes.
So please do go follow us. You can listen on our website, ixfilmproductions.com, or by searching for us on pretty much any podcast platform out there.
We're on Spotify. We're on Stitcher. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on the Google Podcast one. I think we're on the Amazon one that doesn't even exist yet.
Oh, cool.
Or Amazon's making one and we're going to be on it. There's something weird.
Yep.
I know I submitted Amazon. It's happening. I don't know.
But we're going to be focusing the YouTube more just to really awesome video content for you guys.
Yes, we
Lots
have some
of it.
really cool stuff in mind. The Scary Stories for Adults. We've got some behind the scenes for that coming soon.
We do.
Amber's editing it.
She is.
Yep.
I'm very excited.
She went through some of the footage today.
Yeah, working on it today.
In your brain space.
Oh, I'm editing it right now.
Good.
While we're doing this. I'm multitasking.
She's not even paying attention to us right now. She's just editing a video. But yeah, so that's what's happening. So if you listen to us on YouTube, thank you so much for being a follower of us on YouTube. And if you don't subscribe to us on YouTube and you listen to us anywhere else, go subscribe to YouTube to see all those cool things we have
coming. Yeah.
coming out
Please.
that we're taking this down for.
Yes.
The stuff you watch with your eyes, not your ears.
Exactly. YouTube will be for eyeballs and everywhere else will be for ear holes.
Yes.
Yes.
Eyeballs and ear holes have different things.
It's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Organization.
Exactly. Like, it's not good when you put your finger in your eyeball, but
No.
sometimes I do like to put it in my ear hole,
Well, that's
to get that wax
that's
out.
Fine.
you know? And that's
Yeah.
what's... Okay, we'll quit talking about that, and we'll talk about a couple things from 9 to 5, and then we'll get to this beautiful movie, The Matrix. Okay, 9 to 5.
Yes. Which was our last episode. If you missed it, you should listen to it. It was great.
Yes.
It was great. I have one thing that I wanted to say was just really, I guess not, I don't know if it's an apology. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
A statement?
Our cats were hyperactive during the last episode. I didn't really notice during the episode because I've gotten really good at tuning out when they're incessant.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cat yelling
They
throughout.
just had a lot to say about the movie, I guess.
Yeah, there's cat yelling. There's cat. There's a lot of beep beeps from the cat, like little playing with a little mouse toy. Beep, 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 beep,
Oh,
beep, 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 beep,
yeah.
beep, beep. Yeah, it's all.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, guys.
That's hilarious.
Or you're welcome. I don't know. But if you hear that in future episodes, it's our cats. We have a
Cool.
lot of them.
Yeah.
Sorry and thank you and you're welcome. I don't
Cool.
know.
Now that you made all those noises, though, people are going to be like, was that just Patrick? Was he kind of losing it and does that every once in a while? The cat is looking at you very concerned.
Yeah.
I do a pretty good cat noise.
Yeah. Enough to unnerve the cats
Yes.
sometimes.
Another thing I have down here is that Lolo really wanted to talk about Dolly Parton more.
Oh.
She was mad at me the next day for having not talked enough about Dolly Parton.
I mean, as a human being, like science, I'm asking science, is there ever a point where you feel like you've talked about Dolly Parton enough, like in your soul?
I don't think so.
I don't think that's a point you can ever reach.
You specifically made me write down you wanted to talk about Dolly Parton in defense of being pretty, is what my note says.
Oh, yeah.
And now today you seem a lot less inspired.
Well, today it's just been like a week of stomach flu, and now I'm tired. Like I'm just, like that was so long ago.
It was a century ago.
That was a lifetime ago.
At this point. No, just I mean a thing that like I really liked learning about Dolly Parton. I mean, I knew before 9 to 5. I like loved Dolly Parton, but was just a thing how she's always like. She likes to be pretty and she likes to wear makeup and she likes to have her nails done and she likes to look how Dolly Parton looks. And I've seen a lot of interviews of people like being weird and annoying and like ragging on her for that and being like, why, you know, like, and questioning obviously when you're pretty, like intelligence and vanity, and that she's always just been such a cool, chill lady of like, this is just what I like. And like, won people over and is taken very seriously now as an artist and a performer and a philanthropist and activist, and just it's a thing I like a lot because I like to wear a lot of makeup.
You do. Mm-hmm. You wear a bunch of makeup.
And I like to be pretty. And of the people...
And she nails being pretty.
Thank you.
She's pretty all the time.
And of the people who comment on my makeup, not everyone comments on it, but of the people who do, half of them say how nice it is. And the other half ask why I'm wearing that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. And it's just one of those things that I just have I don't know, sometimes it's a thing you can feel weird about as a strong woman being taken seriously, or having people be weird if you prioritize being pretty. And I like that she is such a strong, powerful businesswoman and philanthropist who likes to be pretty like me. I don't know. It just makes me feel like I'm in good company.
Yeah.
With wanting my nails done.
Yeah.
I 100% would agree with that, actually. Because I've had similar, and I like how she's even said before that it's very much for her. Because I've experienced definitely people asking me, or even saying, thinking in a helpful way, saying, oh, you don't have to wear that makeup for other people. And it's like, no, I wear it for me. It's not for anyone else.
That's a big thing she says a lot.
Yeah.
It's for me. Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't care if you wear no makeup, but don't harass me for wearing a boatload.
Yeah. It's like why I wear fancy underpants. It's just for me.
Yeah, exactly.
The last thing I want to talk about 9 to 5 is you mentioned that it was nominated in 1980 for the Writers Guild of America Award for Best Comedy, which I did not know the Writers Guild of America gave out an award every year for Best Comedy and things like that. And I joked that Caddyshack probably won. Caddyshack was not even nominated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
The nominees were 9 to 5, Return of the Secaucus 7.
Okay.
Don't know what that is. Stardust Memories, and Private Benjamin.
Oh,
Did
okay.
Private Benjamin
Did
win?
Private Benjamin win?
Private
Okay.
Benjamin won.
That makes sense.
It's a heavy comedy, but it is good. So
Yeah.
I see that.
I just found that interesting.
That is interesting. Okay, cool. Thank
So
you.
there you go.
I'll really look into that.
I kind of like, though, the theme of 9 to 5 is very much about strong women taking control of their life, and Private Benjamin is also about
yeah.
a woman taking control of her life.
Yeah.
That was yeah.
And Caddyshack is about nothing. No. No, we'll show you Caddyshack someday. Amber.
Yeah, we'll have to do that
That's
one.
another one.
Yeah.
I do love having you on because every time we do a movie with you, I always get someone that comes up to me in real life that's a podcast listener that goes, how has Amber never seen blank?
That is true.
And I know already I'm going to get that about The Matrix.
Yeah.
When I say we've done The Matrix, I'm going to get people that are like, how has she never? And I'll go, well, she's a lot younger. And they'll be like, still. And I'll be like, I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's a thing I used to get a lot less now that I'm a decade deeper in watching films, but that I'd be like, there's only so many hours in the day, people. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies.
And I'm sure we'll get that when we show you Caddyshack.
Oh, yeah.
And
but it's nice because we know people are listening.
It's very nice that we know people are listening, which it's funny to me because I've kind of just started using it to my advantage with other things that I've seen, because I've seen a lot of weird movies that other people haven't seen that are classics.
And so now you just react like that about things that nobody's heard of.
Yeah, because now I remember there was someone I was talking to once, and I can't remember what movie it was. It might have actually been The Matrix.
Yeah.
And they were like, how have you not seen The Matrix? And I was like, well, you haven't seen Walk, Don't Run with Cary Grant, which was his final film before he retired. So
that's
super
cool.
weird of you, but I like it. I'm glad that it's...
And a film I bet too many people have not seen.
it's a very important movie to see.
It is a flawless film.
I'm glad that your lack of film knowledge has worsened your social skills.
Yeah, thank you.
So when people bully you, you bully them back?
I think that's
Yeah.
appropriate.
Oh, okay. Good.
Probably not at all, but I'm gonna pretend it is.
I guess we're at the point in the podcast, though, where we have to go. How have you not seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this one a lot of the films recently that we've been watching, we've kind of already covered this, but in case someone hasn't watched, or listened to, that's right, it's an ear hole.
Yes,
Ear holes, not eyeballs.
It's an ear hole.
No more YouTube.
For people who haven't listened to us talk about Die Hard, I didn't really watch things that were more action growing up. We didn't really do a lot of action films. It was mostly comedies, mostly very old comedies.
So what I like about that is that at this point now, I feel like I'm getting the experience my dad had with me as a child, but with you being like, oh, here are all the cool action movies I watched as a kid.
Yeah.
And that's what he did to me, and now I'm just doing it to you.
100%. That's fine. You're being a very good dad to me right now, Patrick.
Yes.
But so yeah, we didn't really watch action movies, and then The Matrix specifically, I almost saw a couple times actually. Just in my own free time, I thought about watching it, and then like I kind of got nervous because I'd heard a lot of people talking about like, oh, it's so like freaky and scary.
I mean, once we started this podcast, we like banned you from watching The Matrix.
Yes.
Because there have been multiple times where you've like asked about maybe watching it or thought about watching it, and then once we did this, we're like, no, you can't watch it until we have time to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, which has also added to that, because how long has this podcast been going now?
It's over a year.
Yeah, so that if people are wondering why I haven't watched it within a year, you two are to blame.
18 plus, it's our fault.
Yes, 100%. But then after that, I was like, oh, maybe it would like freak me out. And this was like in my teens. I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't watch it. Maybe it'll freak me out. And then as like I heard a couple other things about it, I was like, I don't think it's gonna phase me one iota. But then I kind of started to be like, it like got built up, and then we started talking about watching it together before even the podcast existed, before it was even a thing.
Yeah.
And then it was a thing, and so I had to wait then. So that's kind of why I haven't seen it.
And honestly, like, though we all love each other and we hang out all the time, we're really bad about actually sitting down and watching movies together.
Well, because we hang out a lot in work.
Yeah.
For work. We don't
we
really
hang out socially a lot.
We do, but it's usually in that way of like, I just came over to grab something, but then we chat for 2 hours. We could have watched a movie if we had committed to it, but then
or like we'll eat dinner together often. We play D&D sometimes.
We're very chatty with our other friends too. We're very into actually chatting.
Yeah.
That is very true. When we have the time to hang out, we are so weird in that we actually want to hang out with each other and catch up. We don't want to focus on a movie necessarily.
Yeah. So we're really bad at like watching movies together.
Yes.
So this is kind of a fun thing with the podcast that I've gotten to do, is we've gotten to sit down with Amber over the past year and watch like 5 different movies. Because this is probably, is this your 5th time?
I think so.
Which is awesome. Like this is probably more movies I've watched with you ever before this.
I'm so excited for this one too.
Me too.
Yeah.
So what do you expect of it?
So like a lot, but also nothing.
Okay.
In a weird way. I guess I should talk about like what I'll kind of say. Should I say what I know about it right now? Now seems like a good time. This feels natural.
It would have been had you not.
Said that.
Edit that out, Patrick.
Lolo segued really well, and then you just shit the bed.
Well, sometimes we start talking about things and you're not ready for us to. You have like trivia or something that you're like, no, that's later.
It's because like she's a professional podcaster and you're just a guest.
Yeah, I'm not in charge of this. Okay, I'm just.
All right, tell us about.
So kind of the first time I ever heard about The Matrix was just hearing people talk about deja vu, and I had no idea what the flip anyone was talking about, because like I was in like a play or something and someone was like, oh, deja vu, and they're like, oh, you're in The Matrix, and I had never even heard of the film, and so I was like, what is.
Here's the first question: had you heard of deja vu?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I knew of deja vu, did not know of The Matrix.
Well, because deja vu is also a concept that at some point you have to learn about. You're not born with the innate knowledge of deja vu.
You know, I can't remember learning about it though. That one's just always been up in my brain apparently. But so like people were referencing it in regard to that, and I had no clue what anyone was talking about, but just carried on with my life. You'll get it after today. Yeah, and then I got a little bit older and it happened again where someone had deja vu, and they were like, "Man, I hate having deja vu because it always really freaks me out." Because I always like feel like I'm in the Matrix. And I finally stopped them because this was a good moment where like nothing else was happening. I was like, okay, why do you, like I knew it was a movie at this point, but I still didn't know anything about it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, well, it's like a thing and there's like a glitch in the Matrix. And when you have a deja vu, it's like a glitch in the Matrix and it's really, really freaky. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, that didn't help me.
I was like, I still don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, well, it's like the world isn't real, and that just freaks me out because like I've never, like, what if the world isn't real? And I was like, you've never had that thought before? Is that not normal to
you're not already worried about that?
To think about that? Oh, okay, I guess I'm not going to ask any more about this because this is leading us down some philosophical paths no one else wants to talk about. So I kind of knew that. And then beyond that, I know a lot of visuals from this movie. Like the famous like bullet thing. I've seen that a million
bullet
times.
Time.
And
that's what it's called officially. It's bullet time.
Okay. So bullet time. And like I know that it's like this sci-fi, you know, like you said, revolutionary sci-fi movie. I feel like this one specifically, like when we watched Die Hard and Jurassic Park, those are obviously super hyped up movies, but I didn't really have any like, I was like, if I enjoy watching it, I'm happy. I wasn't holding it up to anything. I kind of am with this one. I'm expecting a lot from The Matrix. And I'm not going to lie about that. This is one of the ones where I'm like, no, this is better be the shit, you guys. Like,
I mean, this morning I was like, looked at Lola and I was like, what if she doesn't like it? Like what if she doesn't? Like,
I mean, so far we've had a very good run of me pretty much loving all the movies you've shown me. So
I think you will. I think we're okay.
I think there's a reason this movie is so beloved.
I think I'll be fine. I will say the last thing that was like a weird thing for me where like you don't really know an actor and then you do and then you go back and you're like, oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Because when I first heard about The Matrix, I had never seen Keanu Reeves in anything.
Yeah.
And then I like saw a bunch of Keanu Reeves movies, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and other stuff with him. And then like pretty recently, like 3 years ago, I was looking at it and was suddenly like, oh my God, did anyone else know Keanu Reeves is in this movie?
That's hilarious. I didn't know. Thank you.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know, that's some trivia that I wanted to give to you guys. You guys are always giving me trivia.
The guy from Bill and Ted is in The Matrix.
That John Wick dude is in The Matrix? Holy shit.
Crazy.
No way.
John Wick. No, I'm joking. I do know that's Keanu Reeves. Which it kind of timed out well with The Matrix. What's the name of the new one?
Yeah.
Matrix 4. Matrix Resurrection.
Matrix 4. Yeah, it just came out. So.
Yeah. That's why we're doing this pretty much.
Yeah.
It's because I want to rewatch all the Matrix movies.
Yeah.
So that I can watch 4.
Same.
Yeah.
Because like I've put off watching 4 till I could rewatch the whole trilogy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even though like I've seen them all way too many times. like a lot. Like it's bad. No. Cool. So but also she even sings that song, the Lonely Island song, like every day.
I do know it from that too.
Every day ever ends in Amber going, "'Cause we live in the Matrix."
Yes.
Oh yes.
Like
I do sing that a lot.
Like every day.
I actually reference The Matrix a lot for having never seen it.
Like too much.
It's about time you see it.
Then. I will say that Patrick is not exaggerating. Literally, I could check my phone 2 hours ago. I was here and something went wrong and I immediately went, "'Cause we live in the Matrix."
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're really into that song.
That's true.
I'm so excited for you to finally see it.
So to tell you about it, the year is 1999.
Okay.
The top grossing films of 1999, starting with number 1, is Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
Nice. Solid.
So that's filmmaking of 99, but it was also like that's pretty revolutionary for 99.
Yeah.
So you need to like kind of remember that going in. It's like, well, Phantom Menace came out this year. It was also groundbreaking.
Yes.
It was a groundbreaking year.
Sixth Sense came out this year.
Oh.
This was like a crazy year of like a lot of people that became very famous started in 99. And then like also I think like Kubrick made his last film in 99, I'm pretty sure. So like it's an interesting like changing of guards year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And George Lucas like came back.
Turn
so
of
like
the century.
Well, George Lucas did a changing of the guard with himself.
Yeah, exactly.
He was like, I'm going to be different now.
Yeah.
But the same.
Yeah.
But with more CG.
Yeah.
Toy Story 2,
Okay.
The Matrix,
Okay.
Tarzan, The Mummy.
Oh, I love The Mummy.
99 is a great
good.
year for movies.
Yeah.
Like honestly. Notting Hill,
Nice.
The World Is Not Enough, which is a James Bond film. I just knew
Okay.
that neither of you would know that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of our fans just went, "What?" And then they all unsubscribed. We just lost all of our subscribers.
That was the sound of them all clicking away.
American Beauty and Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Okay.
Top 10 films. Fucking great list. Like
so
Very what's the word I want to use?
cohesive.
I've seen every movie on that list except for Notting Hill.
You haven't seen Notting Hill?
I haven't seen Notting Hill.
You quote it, man.
I did quote it the other day. That's because I know the quote.
Well, now we have to show you Notting Hill. We're making Amber see The Matrix because she quotes it all the time. We got to show you Notting Hill.
It's about to be February. It'd be a perfect Valentine's Day episode.
That's true.
There we go. So some years you list all the top movies, or I list all the top movies, and we're like, that's a hodgepodge. That year feel like, obviously there's some that aren't sci-fi, but like it feels like I was like, no, yeah, that makes sense. That's 99.
Yeah.
Well, it's cohesive, but it's also a very good range of like different things though, because you have like Toy Story and it's like this family film.
Well, we have like Toy Story and Tarzan of like the kids movies, and then you've also got like the action films of like Phantom Menace, The Matrix, which is more of an adult action film. You've got The Mummy, that's the PG-13 action film. Like you literally range the gamut of PG to R.
Is Matrix R?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I didn't remember.
You've got Sixth Sense, which is like the suspense thriller drama, like horror but not movie. Like it works. All the movies are great. I can't believe American Beauty made it to the top grossing.
Yeah.
Like 99 was a great year for the movies.
Yeah. All right, cool.
It's incredible. Obviously, American Beauty swept at the Oscars that year.
Makes
if you
sense.
didn't know.
I knew that. I did.
I love that movie.
I knew that The Mummy did not sweep the Oscars.
Like you think it did.
Yeah.
Amber loves The Mummy. But who doesn't? Like, have you seen Brendan Fraser without a shirt on back in the 90s?
In Amber's AU, The Mummy won all the Oscars.
Yeah.
Exactly. The Matrix did have 4 Oscar nominations.
Oh, okay.
And 4 Oscar wins.
Oh, wow.
So it won all 4 of its nominations, which is the largest clean sweep a film has had that wasn't nominated for Best Picture.
Okay.
So like no film
has taken all the things it was nommed for without being a Best Picture.
Without being a nominated Best Picture.
Because the Best Picture often sweeps.
Yeah.
And did you say, does it still hold that record?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
No film that wasn't nominated Best Picture has gotten every other award it's been nominated for.
Okay.
So that's surprising because I'm guessing it was up against Star Wars in most of those categories.
Yes.
I was about to say.
It was.
In every category?
I did not look in all those categories.
But I
bet.
I bet you're... Well, no, I bet one of them it's not.
Okay.
Which is it won for Best Film Editing.
Oh, wow.
I don't think Star Wars was up for editing.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It also won just for Best Sound.
Okay.
Just general Best Sound, as well as Best Sound Effects and Best Visual Effects.
So
that was what I was going to
beat
guess.
Star Wars for visual effects.
It beat Star Wars for visual effects.
Wow.
Cool.
Which...
we'll talk more after. I want to talk more about that after.
I'm very excited actually
Yeah.
to see that because I am a big fan of the visual effects.
It's very,
And okay, so talk about visual effects just for a little bit. I don't want to talk about it too much until we watch the movie.
Yeah.
But it's 1999.
Yes.
George Lucas just did Star Wars Phantom Menace because this is the first time he thought the effects matched what he wanted to do when he did the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay? But you also have to think about the other movies that have been coming out pre-Phantom Menace and pre-The Matrix.
Yeah.
Because, even The Mummy, it's got some pretty cool stuff in it.
Yeah.
A lot of that's miniature work. A lot of that is not CG. There's, some, The Mummy CG in little parts.
Yeah.
But even that, it's, 4 different modeled heads that they're morph cutting between. And there's all sorts of, little things that they cheat to get through the CG. No one's done CG like George Lucas did in Phantom Menace and like they did in The Matrix.
Well, it ties in with Jurassic Park.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Because that was what year? 96?
Yes, I think.
That was 93.
Oh, okay.
So this is 7 years later.
Okay.
And that's, once again, we're groundbreaking VFX for Jurassic Park.
Using
that's the first time they've ever done a creature.
Models.
Yeah.
And the first face replace ever.
Yeah.
Just a few years before then.
We're just there.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about another film here in a little bit, and just the graphics of it are crazy compared to what you see in this in Star Wars Phantom Menace. It's wild. But yeah, so The Matrix. It's directed by Lana and Lily Wachowski. They both started as writers. They wrote the film Assassins, which stars Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas.
Oh.
So that got them the opportunity to direct a movie called Bound, which is actually super famous in a very certain sect.
Okay. I haven't heard of it, so I guess I'm not in the...
Yeah, me neither.
Well, it's really famous because it was one of the first lesbian crime thrillers.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It stars Gina Gershon and somebody else. I can't tell you off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay.
But it's about these two women that commit crimes and stuff. And there's like a big lesbian sex scene. And it was like, what the fuck? Because it was really like there weren't lesbian sex scenes back then.
And so it was literally like be gay, do crime.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
So everybody should go watch that movie.
Okay. So that was their directorial debut.
That was their directorial debut. That got them to direct The Matrix. This is their second film they ever directed.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
But third they'd written? Did they write Bound as
Third
well?
they wrote.
Their third written.
Yes.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
It stars Keanu Reeves.
No way.
Which, so at this point in Keanu's career, he'd already done Bill and Ted's. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He's done Point Break in 91. He did the Bill and Ted sequel in 91. He did Bram Stoker's Dracula in 92. He did Much Ado About Nothing in 93. He did Speed in 94. He did Johnny Mnemonic in 95. He did Devil's Advocate in 97.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about Johnny Mnemonic here in a little bit because it stars Keanu Reeves and there are some important things to discuss.
Okay.
But this movie, The Matrix, stars Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne,
Okay.
who was already
Lawrence
Fishburne.
I did not know he's in Apocalypse Now in 79. He did a bunch of TV shows. He'd done The Cotton Club in 84, Color Purple in 85, Boys in the Hood in 91, Tuskegee Airmen in 95, Othello in 95. He plays Othello in an adaptation of Othello.
Oh, I
did
want
not
to
know.
see that.
I did know that.
That's how I
actually.
felt.
Shit. Okay.
And then he's in
I
Event
like
Horizon
Othello, so-
in 97. So
Okay.
like he's already Lawrence Fishburne.
Cool.
And then there's Carrie Ann Moss is the third lead, which Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne are the only two people that are listed named on the poster.
Gotcha.
Carrie Ann Moss is the third lead. She plays Trinity. She'd done tons of TV, but like this is her first big budget picture.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
She's a Canadian actress, and this was her breakout role.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. It also has Hugo Weaving in a pretty pivotal role.
Okay.
Or as Amber knows him, Elrond and Red Skull.
Yep. Damn straight.
Which, like, he'd been acting since the 80s, but not in a lot of recognizable stuff. And mostly, he's an Australian actor.
Oh. Okay.
And so, like, a lot of his bigger things are movies that they did in Australia. Or, like he was in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
a really famous drag movie
Yeah.
filmed in Australia.
Gotcha.
He's also in a film adaptation of the play Proof in 1991 that I didn't know existed because everyone always talks about the Gwyneth Paltrow version that was made 10 years later.
Oh. Okay.
So that just intrigued me.
Yeah.
This movie's produced by Joel Silver,
Oh.
who produced Die Hard.
Nice.
He only makes movies that make him hard.
Yep.
So
Well, I liked the last movie that made him hard, so
what makes Joel Silver hard makes everybody hard.
So was this sorry to jump back, one of Hugo Weaving's was this his first big American blockbuster
Yeah.
in a way? This was like one of his first really big
Yeah.
okay.
This was like the
Elrond
first
level roles he had.
Yeah, he pretty much he did this and then he did Elrond like the next year.
Yeah, because that was
Because that's early 2000s.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like 2 years later, he's Elrond, and then he does 2 more Matrix movies, and then like
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
that's a pretty good
3 Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, to just be like, okay, we'll do this movie called The Matrix, and then I'll be in Lord of the Rings, and then I'll be in more Matrix movies, and now I'm Hugo Weaving.
yeah.
And now I'm big enough to be like, no, I don't want to do the Red Skull makeup anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo Ping Yun is the stunt director for this film,
Okay.
which is really important because the stunts in this film are
Yes.
fucking
I
incredible.
have heard a lot about the stunts in this movie. I'm very excited to see that.
You should be.
He
Yeah.
is a Chinese stunt director and film director.
Okay.
He actually directed the Jackie Chan film Drunken Master
Oh.
in 1978.
Okay.
And so like he's really famous for this type of fighting styles
Gotcha.
and like what they actually refer to as wire fu.
Gotcha.
Okay.
This is kung fu with a bunch of wire work.
Yes.
That's cool.
So he's a wire fu master.
That's awesome.
And the Wachowskis actually sought him out because they were fans of his work in China. He'd never really done a big movie like this, and like when he like got the call for this, he initially was like, "No, I'm not really interested." And they like kept harassing him, and he was like, "I was directing a different movie," and like he speaks like almost no English, and all the behind the scenes he's speaking in Mandarin, I assume, and then there are people translating to the actors and to him, and like
that's cool.
And Carrie-Anne Moss was talking about how like there were like 4 or 5 of them that were all training all of them, but like there was the one that kind of spoke the best English that kind of he had to convey to everybody else what was being said, and I was like, whoa. So that was just kind of cool. And like all the actors, especially like the reason Carrie-Anne Moss got this role was because they did, like, she said, couple hour long screen tests with wire work.
Oh, wow.
And like all sorts of like body work and stuff. And the Wachowski said when they watched hers, she was the most comfortable in all of that.
Wow.
And that's why they went with it. She was their first pick because of
the wire work
abilities. Yeah. Even though she like did not feel confident in it at all, and she thought she did a terrible job, but apparently she did good enough.
Faked it the best.
Yeah. And then Wu Ping, when he got them, he was like, "This isn't gonna work. Like these are." He's used to working with
stunt people,
guys in China.
Yeah.
And he was like, "These are soft actors." And they spent a long time training them, and then also building choreography that lended to each of theirs already body strengths and their body types and all those things. And so that's why I like it's so good.
That's really cool.
That's kind of an interesting thing from his perspective than doing the stunts. You know, you're doing all these movies in China with these people who know what they're doing, and you're like the head of your craft, basically, you could say. You're the best of the best, and then these two people call you up and just keep bothering you, these 2 Americans, and you're like, no, and then you finally agree, and you get there, and there's just all these soft, don't know what they're doing actors, and you're like, what? And they don't even speak your language, and you're just like, this is dumb.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Well, I'm glad he tolerated.
Yeah.
And did it.
Because it's a big part of what makes this movie so amazing.
Without the wire work.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I should have mentioned that I've heard a lot about the stunts.
Yeah.
I've heard so much about that.
Yeah, that and the visual effects are part of what make this movie so cool. The thing that I really like wanted to talk about before we watched it was just how improbable the making of this movie kind of was.
Yeah.
And like how this movie did change. It doesn't have like a lot of the things that I usually have. Like it won these awards. It's on all these lists. Like the only things it really is on is it was added to the Library of Congress in 2012 in the National Film Registry. And it's on the list of 1001 movies to see before you die. But like this movie changed our culture.
Yes.
It changed fashion. Like people started wearing the leather coats after this. People started wearing leather more after these movies. Like it changed fashion. It changed our culture. It changed the way we spoke to each other. It changed the way action movies are. Like this type of action movie exists now. Like there's so many things that parody The Matrix now. Like it set a tone, I feel like, in 1999 for like what the 2000s were gonna be.
Well, and the style, we'll talk more after, just the style and the plot and the way the science fiction narrative is conveyed. Like it's such a different film than anything. Like the story, just story wise, not even like effects or anything. Like it's a very,
and we'll definitely talk more on why,
unique piece.
But like when the Wachowskis wanted to make this movie, they were told no so many times because nobody wants to watch a sci-fi film, is what they were told. And that sci-fi movies don't sell. And their big calling card to that was a film called Johnny Mnemonic. Johnny Mnemonic had come out a couple years earlier, starring Keanu Reeves in it. And it honestly has a lot of similar ideas in it as this film, The Matrix. But it doesn't execute them in the way that The Matrix executes them.
Gotcha.
Like I watched the movie today and seeing it and like seeing the graphics and seeing the like, you would assume it's like an 80s camp film, but it had just come out a couple years earlier in the 90s. It was a huge flop. And like that movie that's starring Keanu was the reason that nobody wanted to make The Matrix. And I just love that they were like, no, we're going to make this movie and we're going to show you that we can do all these really cool things in a movie. And we're going to make something no one's ever seen before. And we're going to put the same lead that you said can't be in a sci-fi movie in that lead.
Don't you just like hate producers that like could look at you and be like, science fiction doesn't sell, and you could be like, did you see the Star Wars trilogy? Did you see what Ghostbusters did for, like, I get that this is a very different film than those, but just to like make such a blanket, sure, there have been failed ones at this point, but like
Star Wars is 2 decades ago at this point, though.
Yeah, but you can't say that like
Blade Runner was in the 80s.
Did Alien come out?
I get that it's not like at the end of the 90s it, you know, wasn't a huge...
Alien was 79. Fuck.
Yeah.
And then Aliens, the sequel was 86.
I just feel like producers often like to make sweeping blanket statements that are based on like last year's sales. They're not based on like actually looking at anything.
But at the time, in the 90s, nobody was making movies like this.
Yeah.
There were not sci-fi films that were big budget sci-fi films, big budget sci-fi action films. They hadn't done that
until this and Star Wars came
since
back.
the 80s.
Yeah.
And then, Star Wars and The Matrix changed that.
Which I do think it's kind of funny. Like we were just talking about, like Star Wars. Yeah, it's been a while and stuff. That at the same time that this was happening, George was like, "I'm bringing it back.
It's time.
It's time."
Well, no one was doing it, and no one had done something like The Matrix, I would say, since Blade Runner.
Yeah. I would. Yeah.
Which it is fascinating. Like, obviously I haven't seen it yet and it'll be interesting and all that. But even before seeing it, I kind of wanted to say this. It is interesting, you know, different movies and stuff. And like we talked about with Jurassic Park, like the memes and Die Hard, people reference it a lot in movies and television. But with The Matrix, it is interesting because it's just like inherently in our society that like literally everywhere I went, people made jokes about like, oh, you're in the Matrix, or like
the red pill or the blue pill.
I've heard a lot about that. I mean, there's so many comments about the red pill or the blue pill and like all these different things that it's not even references. It's like literal, like
it's the culture.
In society, in culture, people referring to it and being like, no, that's this thing. And even in television, people talking about like, oh, we're in the Matrix right now, or it's a glitch, or like
they made the word the Matrix.
Yeah.
The Matrix, like we just talked about the Matrix being a place and a thing.
Yeah.
It's an idea created by this movie.
Yeah, 100%. And so like, even though I haven't seen it, it is fascinating that it is such a thing. It's not even a meme or a reference. It's just like the Matrix is a thing.
Yeah, it permeates our culture.
Yeah. Become like I don't know the words for it, but like that we say Kleenex is like
yes,
like when it's not quite that, but like when a thing becomes just like such a permanent thing. Like Kleenex is a brand, guys. It's not anything. Like
but like the Matrix has become a philosophical idea that we discuss just day to day as if it were some other like as if you're just like saying I think therefore I am, you know what I mean? Like, like, oh, this is the Matrix, this is this thing, this is the like it's an idea that lives in our culture.
We should watch this movie so Amber can participate in this discussion more efficiently.
100%. I'm so excited.
Are we there?
We're there.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
This is The Matrix.
You have now seen The Matrix.
Yay! Now we'll finally know when I sing the song what I'm talking about.
Now you'll really understand what you're saying in a much deeper way.
In the Matrix. Yeah.
What'd you think? Was it what you expected?
It was a little different than what I expected. Okay. Pretty close.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty close with
action
this one.
movie with some philosophy.
Yeah. The like what the Matrix is, I did know once we started watching. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot the pods. Someone told me about the pods once. So like like that kind of came back to me in bits and pieces from other people talking about it.
You're like, oh yeah, we are batteries for the robots.
Yeah. All of that was kind of like, I was surprised with this one how much I knew going through it and being like, oh okay, this and this, and even like action pieces and bits that either have been parodied or that I've seen clips from in like videos talking about stunts, being like, oh, didn't realize that was from this, didn't realize that was from this.
Gotcha.
So it was weird because I've definitely never seen it. I've never even seen clips playing at someone's house or something, but it felt like
you have.
I was like, I kind of feel like
like the dojo scene and the Agent Smith fight, like those are so both parodied and homaged constantly. And like the helicopter scene, the bullet time stuff, like, and even the like crane kick she does at the beginning, like all of that has been homaged.
Like the crane kick, I was like, oh yeah, the first Shrek movie, in Shrek they parody it, and like in The Perfect Score, her like imaginary dream scene of how they do the heist is she's Trinity and stuff. So that was very interesting, being like, oh okay, this is what we're.
Yeah, it's wild how much all of that has been parodied. I found something that said by 2002, so just 3 years later, the bullet time sequence had been spoofed in 20 different movies.
Jeez.
Wow.
So like it's just like in the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's got to be weird seeing it for the first time and be like, yeah, I know. I've seen this because every movie that's been made the past 30 years has been this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because you talked about who did the stunts and stuff, but I was curious, this is going to seem like a jump, but probably not. A lot of the stunt work in it very much reminded me of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
He did do the stunt work for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That's what I thought.
I almost said it in the beginning, and then I kind of got cut off, and then like the conversation changed. I was like, it doesn't matter.
Because that first scene where she's jumping on the rooftops, I was like, this is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I wonder if he also did the stunt work for that.
He did indeed.
Yeah. Okay. And I can see. Yeah, I know.
Good wire foo eye.
Thank you.
You know your wire foo well.
I'm going to put that on my resume.
And then now John Wick has made what they call gun fu. Because that's the gun kung fu he does. Is gun fu. Oh. These are official terms, if anyone's curious.
Okay.
These are real stunt terms.
Okay.
Lolo hates it.
No, just the gun fu.
Why don't you like gun fu?
I don't know.
He does gun fu.
In John Wick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch John Wick more. You'll get it.
Okay.
No, the movie was really good. No, it was just funny because, like, it had definitely... No, the filmmaking was flawless. It was superb.
Yeah.
The filmmaking was superb. All the action scenes were beautiful and beautifully shot. And the way that they shot it, I liked the way it changed scene to scene and what was happening. Like the beginning of the movie kind of just felt like you were watching a weird like 90s, not rom-com necessarily, but just kind of like, this is Thomas, he works in a cubicle, and the way it's shot is very like that, like just boring life. Plus green. Oh my god, so much green. That was so funny to me when it first started. I was like, is it gonna be this green the whole time? And then it was.
Yeah. Well, not when they're in real world.
There's no blue in The Matrix. And in the real world, it's all blue.
Yes.
And that's like the specific thing is like the Matrix is green wash and the real world's a blue wash. And then actually the Kung Fu world is a yellow wash.
I noticed that. Yeah.
It's a third color because it's a different program made by different programmers.
I did notice that, but I was going to say that like in some of the scenes where he's being chased in the Matrix, I like how the like shots in the filmmaking kind of changed almost to be kind of reminiscent of how it feels sometimes when you're in a video game. Which makes sense, you know? Yeah. And I thought all of that was super, well done. I thought the cinematography.
Yeah, the cinematography is wildly impressive. And like to talk about, I think part of what makes this film groundbreaking and what kind of changed American cinema particularly is the Wachowskis really brought in a lot of inspiration from martial arts films. They're huge martial arts fans. They're huge fans of anime, and they even cite 3 specifically, like Ghost in the Shell, which you've seen Ghost in the Shell, 100%. Yeah, totally. Akira, Ninja Scroll. So those are like the 3 animes, and they're also like huge comic book fans, and they're big sci-fi fans, including the work of Philip K. Dick in the Blade Runner movie. Yeah. So like they're taking all these things that they already like loved, and it's like being run through their brains, and then it's refiltered out into one film.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this movie so great is that like it's like almost its own like melting pot of culture. And I think that's why it kind of created its own culture, because it was like it's all these things all these people already all loved, like anime and martial arts films and like, and also like nobody had made an American martial arts film like this, you know? Like, there were martial arts films and there were like American films, and like they weren't really interacting, and then this kind of like brought it. Like there was John Woo, but John Woo was kind of like for the nerds, like the film nerds and the martial arts nerds. This was mainstream.
The most mainstream it had been in America. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I just think that's really cool.
It
and
is.
like I really like all like seeing all those like nerd inspirations and then like seeing it create its own thing. And it's kind of like that weird thing where like when you start out as like an artist or a writer, I think, or even as a filmmaker, I think you kind of start making things that are homages or things that are straight up ripoffs generally of things you already love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like this film is kind of the example of like how to do that perfectly. Well, because like
I do what you're saying.
I agree, because I think that it shouldn't be like one thing that you're like, I'm really into this one thing and you're just kind of copying that. It's more like you said, that they were into a lot of different things and then mixing those made their own.
Yeah.
Which is what good art should do, is different things will inspire you and you take bits and pieces and then make a new thing, because there isn't actually anything original in this world.
No, not at all.
You're just mixing and mashing other things.
Yeah.
And they mixed and mashed in a way that mainstream Americans hadn't seen yet, like you said.
Yeah.
In that they were like, yeah, we're gonna have kung fu, but it's also gonna be like a guns and like sci-fi film, and we're gonna mix
it's gonna be
together.
a comic book, but it's also gonna be anime.
Yeah.
And like I think that's what's so cool about it. But like I think a lot of people, what I was trying to say is like when you start writing a lot when you're a kid, you've like read The Hobbit and you're like, I'm gonna write a book, and then you end up writing The Hobbit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then as you mature, what you realize is to steal a bunch of different things and make them into one thing. You know what I mean? Instead of stealing just one thing and making one thing again, because now you've just made that thing again.
Well, it's like we've talked about with, your elevator pitch. It's typically like, it's this thing and this thing.
Yeah, exactly. But like they do it so well in this movie, I feel like. Homaging while also like creating a new.
Well, yeah, because they like stylistically homage, but in a vehicle of their own design very much.
Yeah. And then like they also like incorporated philosophy in a very interesting way, because like there aren't a lot of philosophical action films.
No.
You know, like a lot of them are like, oh, guns and stuff. And like there's like maybe a little message, but like this movie is steeped in like
It's all a message.
really high level philosophy stuff.
Yeah.
That like, yeah, you've probably heard a lot of the philosophy because you're like a really well-rounded human, Amber, but like it is cool to see it in a movie.
I think it's interesting how I feel like sci-fi does a good job of sometimes incorporating that more.
Oh, yeah.
Because other films, like Star Wars, for instance, has a lot of very deep philosophical stuff steeped into it that they kind of made work in this, like, spacey adventure movie. And I think the same thing in this, it's this weird sci-fi world, but then also talking about these very, philosophical issues. And like that side of it, I had to like keep reminding myself that like, oh, this isn't something you typically see in movies. Because like as a filmmaker, I was able to be like, yeah, this is like groundbreaking with the effects and all this other stuff. But like you said, like I'm so used to hearing all those things. And because everyone was talking about like, oh man, the first time I saw The Matrix, it like bent my mind, that part of it, I think was hard for me to watch and keep reminding myself like, oh, this is also very different in storytelling and like all these philosophies, because parts of that I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, it's because you grew up in like a really philosophy centric household.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, like, for a lot of people, that's not there. And also like the philosophy of this movie is still really high level philosophy, and it's not just like one like single like little like philosophical thing. It's like 100 different like ideas on a thing, and you can think on it. Because none of it's answers either or ideas given to you. It's like thoughts similar to philosophy, and the fact that like, yeah, like the idea of being like, are you a brain in a box isn't like new philosophy. Like the idea of the Matrix. Yeah. So it's not just like the mind blowing of like, am I a brain in a box? I think it's like, it just is a film that sparks the thought of like, what is the power of the human mind even? And like, those types of things. And like a lot of people have obviously thought of like, what is reality? But like it's like Inception. Like Inception wasn't new because this movie had already come out when Inception came out. But it's another film that like makes you think about those. It brings those thoughts back to the forefront, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It also just, on a simpler level, is a straight up analogy, and we're all slaves to the system.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Even if you strip away all the like different elements, I did like the fact that it very much is like the bad guys are guys in suits who tell you to sit down and be quiet and not think your own thoughts. So yeah, I mean, even if you take away all the like high level, you know, what's reality, it is very much like you're a slave to the system, and, you know, kind of just do what you're told and don't just let the higher powers feed off of you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You were born a slave in a system that thinks of you as a battery.
Yeah.
And like all of that's really beautiful. And then how it ends with him being like, I don't know what the future's going to hold, but I'm telling you, we're free now.
Yeah.
Like knowing is enough to be free. And then you just have to decide what you're going to do with that knowledge.
Yeah.
Something that's interesting is in interviews, the Wachowskis joke that if given the choice, they'd take the blue pill.
I bet that's not true, though.
I feel the same way.
Yeah,
but that's what they say in interviews.
It's a good way to keep the higher powers off their back. They got to say that in the interviews. Be like, oh, no,
we definitely haven't taken the red pill.
Yeah, we haven't.
One last like little, not the last, but one of many talks on the philosophy of the Matrix is a lot of it is based off like the Wachowskis are very knowledgeable in philosophy. And I'll talk more about that. But one of the premier thoughts of this film is actually goes all the way back to Plato. Mm-hmm. And it's the Plato's cave allegory, which is a story of if a group of men were trapped in a cave and had no way to move their head and were forced to look at a cave wall. And all they would see is the reflection and the shadows of the things happening behind them from the fire. And sometimes a person would pass, sometimes a carriage would pass, and all these things would happen as shadows on the wall. And that's all they knew. And then one day, a man is released from his prison, and he's able to go outside of the cave. And at first, it's hard for him to see, because all he's ever seen is the shadows on the wall. And then eventually things become clear, and he experiences a whole new life, and he experiences all these new ideas and these new worlds and these things he'd never seen before, because he'd only seen them as shadows on a wall. And eventually he decides he wants to go back to the cave to free the others. And when he goes to the cave, the men think he's crazy. And he can no longer see the shadows because it's dark in the cave, and he's gotten used to the sunlight. And so because he can't see the shadows that once were there, the men think he's gone blind and insane, and they beat him to death.
Yeah, that sounds like Plato.
Plato was a smart fucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like that is a small little idea of what became the Matrix.
Or a huge idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Literally just the Matrix.
Yeah, the Matrix is the shadows in the cave wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
That's really beautiful and sad and true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Plato used it a little bit, not for evil, but a little bit for evil.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because he also put it as a point for like, that's why you shouldn't trust the masses, because the masses believe in the shadows in the wall, and that he believed that we needed a philosopher king.
Yes.
So like it gets a little bad.
Oh yeah, there's parts of Plato where he got a little too big for his own philosophies, and
But like he's also not wrong, because his teacher Socrates was murdered by a bunch of people because he was spouting truth. So like
oh my God, so sorry, this is not as serious, but there were a couple moments, because it's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
When they were like talking about some of the stuff and, you know, like the spoon and all of that. And all I could think of was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And he's like, it's so crowded. Philosophize with him, Ted. All we are is dust in the wind.
There was one moment where Keanu went, whoa. And I was like, huh. Just because we just talked about Bill and Ted.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So the directors
Mm-hmm.
obviously were into philosophy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were so into it, and they really wanted the actors to understand more than just the script itself, but the philosophy that the script is steeped in.
Okay.
So they gave most of the actors external reading that they like were assigned reading. They had homework.
That's adorable.
Including the Simulacra and Simulation, Out of Control, and Evolutionary Psychology before they were even allowed the script.
Jesus.
And Carrie Ann Moss said that was like one of the hardest parts of being a part of this project was reading all of those philosophy books and trying to understand them. And Lawrence Fishburne said that when he read the script, he had no problem understanding the script, but he really believed the movie would never get made because it was so smart. He was like, you can't make a movie that's like this.
No, but you can because there's guns and stuff too and wire work.
Well, the thing is that Warner Brothers, when they like got a hold of it, they were really insistent that there needed to be more explanatory dialogue. And so I think a lot of Lawrence Fishburne's like explaining what the Matrix is lines got added in by them.
Gotcha.
Because they were like, no one's going to get this script. It doesn't make sense. And like for a while, the Wachowskis were shopping it around and nobody wanted to buy it until they actually hired 2 different illustrators, Steve Scorsese, I think, and Jeffrey Darrow, to create over 600 storyboards that ended up selling the film. Because when they could see it as a comic book, pretty much, they pretty much made a full comic book out of it. And when studios could see that, they were like, oh my God, this is genius.
Of course.
Okay. But it had taken them 5.5 years and 14 drafts of the screenplay before they eventually sold this movie.
You might, I think you're still right though, Lilo. After the storyboards, they could see there were guns and stuff.
Yeah, they were like, oh, there's guns in it. Okay.
I do like though that mental image of like, it's like, okay, after you finish your day of learning wire work and getting yelled at by someone who you can't understand what he's saying, you can go home and read your philosophy books. See you tomorrow. Same thing.
Just like they were training to fight in the Matrix or to be Doctor Strange or
Which like Doctor Strange is another movie that like takes inspiration like in this kind of
what?
Yeah, that one definitely, that was some moments that I was like, oh, Doctor Strangey. Also the film Lucy.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean like Lucy is John Wick with a lady is how you sell that one, and John Wick is like the Matrix without the philosophy and the sci-fi stuff. And still Keanu. The Simulacra and Simulation by Jean Boulard is one of the books that the Wachowskis made them read. It's also the book that Neo hides stuff in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Okay,
I saw the title of it at the time and I was like, oh.
Yeah, so it's a philosophical look about the concept of simulations.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what is hyper-reality.
Yeah.
And what is real and all that. And Neo hides the book in the chapter on nihilism.
Okay.
Which nihilism is the sense of despair coupled with the belief that life is devoid of meaning.
Gotcha. So I have a weird question you might not have any trivia on.
Yeah.
So the rain at the top.
Yeah.
Do you know if they were on sound stages? I assume that was all rain machines because it was so much and so perfect.
That is fake rain on location.
Oh, okay, so they had rain machines outside.
Yeah.
That's cool. Just because all that opening with the very noir, very Blade Runner, which is very noir, just like the lighting and just that downpour.
It's gorgeous.
It's so aesthetically pleasing.
Talking about when they pick up Neo.
Yeah.
Also, that building they pull up to is full matte painting.
I thought it only because it was like so just like perfectly the mood. I was like, I wonder if that's CGI
it's a 2-story building
or that they
painted
extended
to make 11 stories.
That's cool.
Okay.
So a thing we touched on at the top that then we couldn't really talk on because Amber hadn't seen it yet.
Now she has.
Was talking about that you said this beat Star Wars Phantom Menace for best special effects at the Oscars that year.
Yes, I did say that. And I think it deserves it.
I agree, Amber.
I think I agree.
I mean, I think also it is like apples and oranges, but I can see why this one.
Well, so what I will say is there are a lot of effects that you think are digital that are practical.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of effects that you think are practical that are digital.
You kind of hit the nail on the head of what I was going to say about why I think it won.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of just that there's a certain gritty level of realism to this movie that is achieved through special effects to the point that like you don't notice them, whereas Star Wars Phantom Menace is such a clean, the effects are so clean and they're so well done and it's such a completely different style of special effects and incorporating it in just the film in general in a weird way that like somehow this feels real.
Well, I'll say two things on that. The first thing I'll say is the effects guy who does the commentary. He talks about how a lot of the effects, besides bullet time, obviously, bullet time is insane, and we can talk about bullet time for 100 years.
Yes, we can.
But a lot of the other effects in this movie are very subtle, are very minimal, and he kept being like, they're nothing new.
Yeah.
They're just well executed and in service of story, if that makes sense. Like they're all little effects that like the mirror effect.
Yes.
They do it very well, but it's Terminator 2.
Yes.
It's the Chrome guy. Like it's done over and over again, but they did it in a way that just serves the story just enough. Like the spoon bend isn't that special, but like serves story.
Yeah.
Morpheus's glasses.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Are an effect.
Oh, 100. Yeah.
Well,
The doorknob is an effect.
Otherwise, you'd
camera
see the
whole
camera.
time.
Those are all wrapped CG images.
Yeah.
And so beautiful when he's holding out the red and the blue pill
And each glass. Yeah. That was a gorgeous shot.
It's such an impressive because it's a good enough reflection that it feels like a real reflection.
Yes.
It doesn't feel so distractingly fake
Yeah.
and
Which-
composited onto his glasses, but
Everyone has said it now, but we'll just keep saying it in different ways until we get around the full circle, I guess. But I would agree because like obviously everyone knows Star Wars is the love of my life, but it's very different in its effects. It is also different because it is, I mean, this is too, it's a different world, but it's still supposed to be cemented in our world with some of our rules. And so I think watching the effects in Star Wars, like you said, is very different. It's much more clean and it's like a completely different world and it's completely different creatures that are being made. And it's not the same as someone's, like you said, trying to make the reflections on a set of glasses show a person sitting across from you in a realistic way that blends with the scenery. And they did an amazing job with that.
The second thing I was going to say is the CG work, like the full CG created creatures and like the Sentinels and the ship, the Nebuchadnezzar, which actually there's a model of the Nebuchadnezzar, and that's why the Nebuchadnezzar looks so good, is it's a model,
that makes sense.
and then there's some CG like effects of glows and stuff like that added to it. But like the Sentinels, when you see the Sentinels move and when you see the little thing move that like grabs Keanu, like the bit that grabs Keanu is obviously physical, but when it comes down, you know it's CG.
When he's in the pods and stuff, you're talking about.
Exactly. Those have the same benefit of CG that the T-Rex in Jurassic Park has.
Yeah.
Is that they chose conditions that are good for CG, which is these low light, specular conditions, or it's single light sources. You know what I mean? Like there's these very particular locations and ways to shoot a thing that benefit the way CG looks. Where Star Wars, there's a lot of like,
they're in full
this
sunlight.
is the full
sunlight,
object in full sun in the full world because we're creating
impressive.
a whole world out of it. So it's a lot harder to do that CG, and it's a lot harder to hide that CG. It looks shiny, clean, CG.
Sure.
But if you put like really harsh shadows on it, that kind of hides that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So another film that I just kept thinking about watching this movie that I feel like did a similar, just masterful job of having like effects and wire work and stuff incorporated in a way that you don't even think about it as effects was the What We Do in the Shadows movie.
yes.
By Taika Waititi, because that film feels so stripped down, which
So
this film is a
grounded.
lot more like noir stylized budget, obviously, but that one I feel like uses effects in a similar way of being like, no, this is just
Well, because
Yeah.
I think that
only what we need where we need it.
because it's understanding and sometimes sacrificing a little bit of, I think, as a filmmaker, wanting to be like, we want to show this in a way that shows like we did this cool thing, instead of being like, no, in their universe, this isn't a big deal, so we can't act like it's a big deal in the film either.
Yeah.
And I think this movie and yeah, that one do a very good job of being like, this is what the effect needs to be, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
So bullet time?
Yes, bullet time. Let's do it.
Bullet time.
Okay, do you know how they did bullet time? Have in all of your research of worlds, has anybody broken down bullet time for you?
Yeah, but it was like 4 years ago that I watched that video.
Okay. It's fucking insane.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So they tried multiple times shooting a camera down a track over and over again.
To circle him.
Yeah.
So it's not CG.
Yeah.
And what would happen is it kept breaking the dolly. The dolly would break throughout it.
Couldn't go around him fast enough.
Quick enough around for it to look good in post.
He's laying back on wires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or any of the times they do bullet time.
Yeah.
Because
they do circling shots a lot in the film.
Yeah.
Just the one where he's falling back with the bullets is the famous one that you can see I've seen behind the scenes footage of and whatnot.
You can see behind the scenes of all of them.
Well, okay.
Moving swiftly on.
So, what they figured out was that a movie is a lot of pictures put together over and over again. So what they did is they built a green screen circle that you can place and change the placement of 120 different cameras. And when you push the button, they each take a single frame going around that circle.
They're just photo cameras.
Yeah.
Actual photo cameras. And then there are 2 actual film cameras, one at the beginning, one at the end. So then it's film, photos, film is how it works.
I mean, that makes sense for the way it looks.
Because they're getting 120 frames.
Yeah.
The problem is the footage is still longer than that photo. Mm-hmm. So they're actually then frame interpolating a little bit of CG
in
for
between
the middle frame of each one too.
Okay.
To double it up.
To just do, and they're just small morphs. They're just little morphs to morph from one movement to the next movement.
Just say it in a really dumb way. Just dumb it down. It's like they're just morph cutting between 120 photos.
Exactly. So what they're doing is
they're blending them all together.
Yeah, they're taking
morph.
2 photos of Keanu, one with Keanu here in one position and one with Keanu moved just a little bit. And then what they do for that middle frame is they kind of just pull the pieces of Keanu to the in-between spot. And then it looks, as they play it, like a real moment.
Yeah.
And so that's how they do bullet time.
I mean, it works. They put a little bit of paste between the pages and they stuck together. It works.
It was such a genius way to work.
You know what you have to realize? What's the environment? What's the world he's standing on? Because he's in a green screen.
Yeah.
How do you get the world around him?
I assumed it was CG for that moment.
But we've never made a computer-generated world like that. 1999,
Gotcha.
There's never been a CG environment like
They
that.
created the Matrix for the Matrix.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no one had ever made a photo-real CG environment before.
Until 2 films did it in the same year.
Star Wars doesn't do it.
Oh, okay.
Star Wars does not have a photo-real CG environment.
Okay.
In Phantom Menace.
Okay, maybe you're right. I don't know.
Prove me wrong, Amber.
Well, explain to me and make sure I'm understanding what you're saying when you say a photo-real world.
I mean, the floor, the walls, all of it look photorealistic.
I feel like they do with
and
Naboo.
The entire environment is computer generated.
They do for one of the battle scenes in Naboo.
What's CG? What's full CG?
The grass and the sky.
Oh, for the Gungan fight?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that's pretty close to photoreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the Matrix does it better in bullet time.
The Matrix does do it better in bullet time. I'm not going to argue with that.
So they developed a way to what they did is how do you get good photoreal things like that is they pretty much way before what did you do today is you take an HDRI of the space.
Yeah.
You take a high dynamic range photo, which is actually like a dozen photos in a 360 view.
Yeah.
They just went out and took a fuck ton of photos and then they patched them together and interpolated them and placed them on top of CG spaces to slowly build it out so that they would have a space that they could create and move around in. And they did it for the rooftop where he does the bullet time rooftop moment. They had to do it for Trinity's room, the room she does the crane kick.
At the beginning.
When she jumps, the moment she jumps, we're now in CG room. And then it changes back to a real room.
But using real photos of her.
Yeah. Using real photos of the room.
Yeah.
And using all of photos of her. Yes.
That's what I was trying to say, because they did that the same as they did the Keanu shot.
Correct. But like, so she's in the set, she jumps, and then it's a composite of her on the CG version of that same set that they built out of the photos.
Looks good.
They did it for...
It's so smooth.
When him and Agent Smith jump and they hold each other and they shoot around... That's all a composited subway.
When you say it that way, it sounds so beautiful.
It does.
When they hold each other and they jump.
But like that's like the subway goes from the actual film to the CG subway without you noticing.
Yeah.
That's what amazes me.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Is that it's that photo reel in 99.
Yeah.
Like if they cut from the grass on Naboo to an actual field and like Qui-Gon standing there, you could feel the difference, I think.
No, like I said, they did a great job, and I love that movie. But this one definitely did a better job of, I think the biggest difference is their, I guess, transitions, like you're saying.
Yeah.
The ability to go from one to the other is really, really impressive.
It's seamless. And like a million people have now copied bullet time, and there's like a bunch of really bad versions of bullet time. And like what this kind of led to was the idea of virtual cameras. And what we see nowadays is like in Justice League, where we have a virtual camera that like Wonder Woman like slides in and it comes around in a way that a camera could never move anymore.
Yeah.
Where like everything kind of becomes CG.
Yeah. The video game moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I hate.
Is bullet time's fault. But like
Yeah.
bullet time uses it to tell a story narratively, and I feel like we're kind of losing that now. It's just like, oh, because we can create a virtual camera and move through this space.
Feel as bad.
Yeah.
In Matrix.
Yeah.
As it does in some newer movies I won't name, where you feel you're like, oh, now we're in a video game cutscene instead of watching footage of actors.
Well, I think the part of that, kind of like I was saying before, is how you said in this one, it's really there to, it sounds weird, it's not showing off anything.
No.
It's not showing off, oh, look at what our actors are doing right now. It's not showing off, look at what we can do right now. It's literally, hey, this character has been struggling with understanding his environment and the way that he can overcome his own mind. And look at the way he's overcoming his own mind right now. And we have to literally show you, because it's a narrative story it's story progression.
Exactly. At the beginning, it shows you that Trinity can break the world just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then later it shows you that he can break the world a fuck ton.
Yeah.
Like it shows you actively what's happening to Neo. It's used to tell the story. Where nowadays it's used to kind of jump around a fight without having cuts that work as nicely as the dojo scene. But like we wouldn't have those moments without this movie, because they built the technology to create these virtual scenes that are photoreal and move them through. Like Sherlock, the TV show Sherlock, does bullet time. There's a scene where he's thinking of like what happened at the wedding, and he's like going through all these moments, and it's showing bullet time to show his thought process. Like all these things do it, and like Sherlock uses it to tell the story narratively really well. Mm-hmm. But like we couldn't do that if they hadn't invented it for this movie, which is just so cool to me.
It is.
Yeah.
But we do have to do a shout out to director Michael Gondry. He directed the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Mm-hmm. And he's done a bunch of other things.
Okay.
But 3 years prior to the release of The Matrix, he made a commercial for Smirnoff.
What?
That's oddly similar. And if I showed it to you today without the preface, you would say that is ripping off bullet time.
Oh my Lord.
So I'll just say, if you look up Michael Gondry, bullet time, Smirnoff, you'll see the commercial.
Okay.
And it looks eerily similar to bullet time.
Okay.
Oh, well, the last thing that I'll say about bullet time, and this was a film that I felt like it was actually fun, that moment. I was not annoyed by it, but just like giving credit where credit's due of like, oh, that's where they got that from, is in the X-Men movies when, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name.
Wolverine.
No, the fast kid.
Oh, Quicksilver.
Oh.
Quicksilver.
Yeah.
When they the way that they shot those scenes, that's basically.
Yes.
That's a great use.
That's a very good,
of that kind of filming.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when that moment happened in this movie, I was like, oh yeah, that's like the bit when he like literally knocks the bullet out of the air as he's running by it. Yeah.
Talking of other
That's
odd,
a great scene.
like,
It is.
filmic things about this film that you don't like notice, but that's like back there, and that they just like they do a handful of times, is like they really play with frame rate, obviously, and the fact that like there are some bits that are like a little sped up, and there are some bits that are a little slow.
Yeah.
And then what I think is really interesting in playing with frame rate is in the car, when they're driving in the car, car stuff is always on a sound stage with rear projectors, according to the editor guy on the commentary.
Okay.
Apparently because they wanted it to feel kind of disparate from like the in the car and the people that like know it's the Matrix and the Matrix outside of the car. And so the frame rate in the car is different than the frame rate outside the car.
Of what's playing on the rear projectors? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that actually, so this is going to sound crazy, but when we were watching it, I felt like outside the car looked weird, and I thought maybe it was on purpose. So I guess I'm not just crazy.
That's really
Doesn't it
cool.
is. And I've never like internalized it. It never pointed out in my brain like it did for you, Amber, but like it does give a feeling for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did watch, I'm obsessed with Corridor Crew's VFX Artist React.
They're a great video series.
So they love The Matrix.
That makes sense.
Yeah, obviously. And they just did the new Matrix on their thing, and they were complaining about a scene in the newest Matrix because they were like, the VFX is weird because the frame rate outside the train doesn't match the inside the train stuff. And they were complaining about it. And I'm wondering,
They
like,
did it on purpose.
I get that scene did look weird. Like, as I was watching it on their React show, I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't look incredible. And they're like, this is why it doesn't look incredible. But like, what if it's on purpose?
I mean, if they did that on purpose in the car.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the new movie yet, so I don't know contextually if it's a similar
And sorry to
situation,
call
possibly.
out Corridor Crew for maybe them not knowing all their like Matrix facts. But
Man, you
super
were watching stuff about the
interesting.
new movie before you saw it, Patrick?
yeah, I really like them, and I thought they wouldn't spoil too much, and I don't think they did. They didn't really spoil anything. So I'm happy.
Good. Oh, well, a moment that has nothing to do with filmmaking, but when I said it when we were watching, you were like, oh, I should probably say that.
Yeah.
Was when we were watching the movie.
Oh
And-
yeah, the one point
And
the one point you cringed.
yeah, and you know, there's a lot of violence in it and all of that, and we get to the scene where they're in the walls, crawling down the walls, and I just turn to Patrick and Lilo and go, "This is the creepiest part."
I know.
That
it's
was
your
by far the
very
worst,
claustrophobic.
the worst bit.
That's weird that the pods don't bother you being claustrophobic.
They
The goo
did.
Pods. Okay.
No, they did. I
Okay.
didn't say anything in that moment, but no, that did bother me. I was glad when they dropped him out into the water. I was like, it doesn't matter if you drown, at least you're out of the pod.
That's Lolo's least favorite bit is the pod.
It's
Just
horrible.
him like bursting out of it and all the
As a
looks
kid, my least favorite
gross.
bits were the mouth and
Yeah.
the
Oh,
bug in the
God.
stomach.
that
Those
I
bugged
just
me.
don't watch that bit.
I did not like the mouth. I did look away at the mouth as soon as it started to happen. I was like, oh, as soon as he said, how you no, talk. And I was like, oh, he's going to take away his mouth. And I just looked down.
Which that's a full CG effect.
The whole way through or just transitioning?
Whole way through the mouth.
They never put a practical
They
on?
never put a practical on him.
Even when he's touching it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah.
That's really impressive. I thought that, like, the transition, obviously, but then I thought when he was in the corner touching his face, they may be.
But his abdomen sometimes is fake.
Ah,
They built a full fake Keanu abdomen
that makes sense.
to put a bug in and to pull a bug out of.
That makes sense.
It was kind of funny to me in that moment. At first, when his shirt falls open, I was like, okay, well, we need to see his chest. But then I was like, oh, no, it's for the story. Oh, okay. I thought that was just for us.
I was like, I thought it was just a treat for me.
For sitting through the creepy mouth thing, you were like, here, you can see his abs.
No, it's just to give you more creepy.
Yeah, I didn't need that.
Yeah, the bug's bad.
And then
Bug
it's
is
so
bad.
great because he like wakes up just after that. But like, I love how like the first like 3 times we kind of introduce Keanu, it's all him awaking from a dream. And it's like that idea of like, are you awake? Are you asleep? Are you dreaming? Are you not?
Yeah.
And they keep asking that question, and like Keanu just keeps
Yeah.
waking up, but it's still the real world. And you're like, but is it?
Yeah,
I just think that's really good filmmaking.
I did really liked the bit when he's in the car with them, and I was like, wow, he's like kind of doing okay with all of this. There's not much reaction from him about it. And then when they pull the bug out and he's like, holy shit, that's real. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah, well, because, he doesn't know if it was real.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want it to be.
Yeah. He woke up and his mouth was normal. It was just a dream.
Ugh. Yeah,
but
the mouth
wall
thing was bad.
scene.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted you to bring up the wall scene is the walls.
When they're crawling down behind the walls.
When they're crawling inside the wall.
Yeah.
And they're crawling down it. Is a real practical effect that they built a little wall canal, and it's an actual vertical set that they are crawling down. It's a 3-story little vertical ladder thing that they're Amber's face of disgust.
Nope. Sounds fun.
I know.
I would do that.
And then they had stuntmen that, like, when they do the drop, that's stuntmen dropping through it.
God.
Okay, so one half of me as a filmmaker is like, that's very cool, very impressed with the stunt people, very impressed with the filming too, of filming this, fake set and the actors and all of that. And the other side is just revolted.
It's just by close spaces.
Yes.
You're just like, revolting.
I would have gotten a set and they were like, okay, today's not, it's going to be a little difficult. You're going to be, no.
But it's open out the side.
Yeah, but there's still that worry that, like, what if you get stuck somehow? You're still gonna be between a rock and a hard place.
Okay, sure.
Don't try to logic the claustrophobia, Lolo.
You did not hide in cabinets as a child like I did you?
I did sometimes if I
did you get stuck once? Is that where
I had to have my hand out the cupboard door to make sure it didn't somehow get stuck.
Yeah. So this is a very deep-seated childhood fear going way back.
We can get into that.
I don't know if we need to unpack
at a later time. As John Mulaney would say, we don't have time to unpack all of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Talking about dreams, though.
Yeah.
The Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
That's the name of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it named Nebuchadnezzar? Well, obviously, there's a lot of biblical references, and there's the whole is he a Christ motif? There's a little bit of that.
That's a biblical reference?
It is indeed a biblical reference. So is Zion.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, that would explain how you're able to keep saying the name of this ship like it's a thing.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
Because you know it.
Yeah, it's a biblical reference to King Nebuchadnezzar II.
I thought it was saying that word like it's a word.
I know, it's funny.
Gibberish. That's how I felt when you said in the movie too. I was like, that is a gibberish mouthful.
Weird.
I thought it was going to be something backwards. I was trying to figure out what it was backwards. I thought it was going to be a real word spelled backwards.
That's so weird because I grew up Catholic. So Nebuchadnezzar and Zion, to me, I was like, oh, yeah, I get it.
Neither one means anything.
This is showing the difference in our roots.
Okay. So, I, as a young boy, knew Nebuchadnezzar, but I couldn't, place why they would name the ship that or even, the story, really.
Yeah.
So, it goes along with the story of Daniel, which I don't know if you know about Daniel at all.
No.
Daniel is a dream interpreter.
Oh, okay.
And King Nebuchadnezzar is a man plagued by a dream.
Oh.
And he has a quest that he is trying to get someone to interpret that dream. And he's killing people that won't interpret his dream.
That makes sense.
So the Wachowskis are very up on their philosophy and their Bible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very much.
Well-rounded readers.
And Neo is plagued by the idea of is he dreaming, is he not? And Morbius is plagued by a prophecy, which is kind of like a dream.
No,
it's
there's a lot there. It's a great name for the ship.
It's kind of perfect.
Yeah. That's really funny to me, though.
I love it.
That I'm trying to figure out what the anagram is because I didn't grow up Catholic.
Yeah, I was just and the ship is gibberish.
Yeah, that's wild.
Lola's like, oh, sci-fi names. Okay.
Yeah. We made that one up. Cool.
Yeah, there are tons of biblical references through all 3 of the Matrix films, along with philosophical names.
Gotcha.
And Morpheus, he is the keeper of dreams. Is what Morpheus is in Greek mythology.
I knew that one because I do know Greek mythology.
Yeah. So he's the king of dreams, which is also why he's Morpheus in Neil Gaiman's
Sandman?
Sandman. That's Morpheus, which the Wachowskis knew Sandman even. And
as comic book fans.
As comic book fans, they were fans of the comic book Sandman.
It's an excellent comic book. I love it.
I did not realize the comic book Sandman was has been around that long.
Yeah, it has. And it's great. But yeah, so there's all sorts of a lot of really cool little references. And you can unpack all the philosophy of this movie for a million years.
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff that really reminded me of, which that's a book, not a movie, so slightly different. But some of the dialogue reminded me of the discussions in the book Illusions by Richard Bach. Has a lot of the kind of the same stuff about like you creating
weird,
your yeah.
And like Christ metaphors in Illusions too.
Oh yeah,
because like he kind of believes he's a Messiah.
Yeah, everyone thinks he's a Messiah and he doesn't want to be. Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah, it is similar. You're not wrong.
So the helicopter sequence.
Yeah.
During it. You leaned over and shared a little trivia with me in advance that now I want to talk about.
You two were sharing trivia during the movie.
We'd seen it before. A lot.
Tisk.
So almost all of the helicopter footage, except for the bits where you can obviously see Neo
lead actors' faces.
Morpheus's faces. Yeah, the lead actors' faces. That's all real helicopter footage.
Nice.
And she's actually in that helicopter.
Oh, the actress was in a real helicopter?
Yeah, she is.
Oh, shit.
And that was shot by second unit. A lot of it, not all of it. Some of it was shot by second unit on the first day of filming.
Oh, geez. You didn't say that.
Yeah.
You just said a lot of it was real footage, and I thought that was really cool.
And yeah, all of it's real. So when you're seeing her sitting in the helicopter and you can see out the window, that's all real helicopter footage. Jesus. Her in a helicopter.
Oh my God.
They also almost got shut down that day because apparently they flew in places they were not supposed to fly.
You know,
if I had a nickel for every time you told me a story about a helicopter shoot almost getting canceled, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Ended up changing the helicopter laws in that area because of that day.
To stop helicopters?
I don't know.
From being
all the trivia just say laws were changed.
I don't think they changed any laws for Die Hard.
I mean, helicopters are very dangerous.
They are very
I do not blame any city for being like, fuck out of here.
Carrie-Anne Moss was even talking about how like scary it was just sitting in the helicopter while there were 2 people hanging from the helicopter. Yeah. Because like there were 2 stunt doubles actually just hanging and dangling from the helicopter.
And they were, I presume, since the city got mad, actually in the city, like it looks like.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was the problem. They apparently flew past a building they weren't supposed to like fly by.
With people hanging beneath them.
Maybe or maybe not. I don't know about the people situation at that moment.
I bet you they got concerned when the directors came to them and were like, no, it's fine because when it hits the building, it's just going to ripple because we live in the Matrix. And they were like, stop flying by us.
That explosion and all of that is obviously scale models, if you're curious. And they even found stuff that would ripple. So the ripple is scale model rippling.
Oh, okay. So the ripple's not CG.
I don't think so, because the Wachowskis were talking in the behind the scenes that they were looking for a glass that would ripple.
Whoa.
Oh.
And it's all done at quarter scale, which
so
sounds
still
small.
Pretty big.
But you have to think about how big a helicopter is.
Yeah.
And it's only 1/4 the size of a helicopter. That's a pretty fucking big helicopter. They're exploding against a 1/4 scale building.
That's big.
I mean, I don't know how tall their building was, but
yeah,
if you, I mean, it probably wasn't a 100-foot building, still 25 feet. Like,
yes,
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty wild, and like it was really cool seeing the behind the scenes of like all the different shots and all the different days it took to get all the different pieces to be able to like edit together him running out the building and him jumping, and then like Neo jumping, and then the helicopter bits. Like it's so many different things shot at so many different places to edit it all into one scene.
Yeah,
it was really cool to see.
That's really
cool.
behind
the scenes. Highly recommend it. This is a dumb piece of trivia.
Share it.
Yeah, do it.
Carrie-Anne Moss said that after the film's release, she couldn't leave her house in sunglasses without being immediately recognized. Because that was actually more recognizable
than to her face.
Yeah,
that reminds me of the guys in ZZ Top who say if they don't wear sunglasses,
Yeah.
They
I think like the beards are fake.
The beards
at this
are
point,
fake
too.
They are, so that they
their
can go
life.
out and live their life.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
They're
Smart.
more recognizable with more stuff.
So just because you were like, dumb trivia. You shared dumb trivia to me the other day. Did you write it down?
Are you talking about Keanu?
I'm talking about lines. Keanu's lines.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. This is good trivia. You're right. In the first 45 minutes of the film, Neo has approximately 80 lines. Okay?
Okay.
So in 45 minutes, he's got 2 lines per minute. 44, so over half of those lines, are questions. Which means he averages about a question per minute.
That makes sense.
He's got a lot of questions.
I just really liked that trivia and that person who did that.
Also, though, the first 10 minutes of the movie are Keanu-less.
Yeah.
Because it's her in the fight scene and all that.
So technically
he's averaging.
Yeah, even more.
A lot more.
You know what else is crazy? So just talking about like really good writing and really cool stuff that you don't like notice till the 50th time through. So Cipher.
Yeah.
The guy who betrays them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the little things that I find kind of like funny that's like interesting is that everyone's doing Alice in Wonderland analogies, right?
Yeah, I know. That bothered me actually.
But
And then
Cipher
he does Dorothy.
does a Wizard of Oz analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, Cipher's on the phone at the beginning with Trinity, and he's upset that she's taking over his post because he wasn't supposed to leave yet. Like, that's what the phone call is Cipher being like, oh, I didn't realize you were taking over my spot. And she's like, yeah, I wanted to get back in. And he's like, oh, you like him, do you? Like, that's all what's happening.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, I just wanted to be here. And he goes, you know we're going to kill him, don't you? Like, he says it. He tells her, we're going to kill him.
Yeah.
But, like, obviously that can be taken as, you know, when we try to bring him out of the Matrix, that's going to kill him. Or it can be like, I'm a mole. Me and the agents are going to kill him, don't you?
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's beautiful. Like, the 5th time you get to know, you watch it, you can notice that and be like, whoa.
Well, I did not think about it in that regard with that line, because by the time we're in the rest of the movie, like, that dialogue is gone.
That's so
it was
far
on a
away.
black screen. But
didn't know that was Cipher.
But
that's Cipher's voice.
the Dorothy bit did bother me. Like, I almost leaned over and said something, but we try to keep talking to a minimum when we're watching it. And like when he did the Dorothy analogy, I almost turned to you and was like, did he not get the memo? We're doing Alice in Wonderland analogies.
He's very jarringly out of sync, which is nice because it takes away some of the like any cheesiness there would be in using the Alice metaphors too much.
It really does.
And it like, you're like, oh yeah, it's
yeah.
And then it also is like he is the odd one out. So
yeah, it's got a mixed metaphor thing. It also does help in the fact that, yeah, like if everyone was constantly doing Alice in Wonderland, it would be a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would make it cheesy.
Yes.
But like they do it just enough.
And then they really hang a lantern on it by changing up the metaphor.
Yes. So this is an interesting thing to me. And that's the city this movie is shot in.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it, Amber?
At first I had a hard time with it because when it started, I couldn't figure out where we were supposed to be, or if we were supposed to be in the future, or if it was like, oh, we're in a sci-fi city, or
How do you figure out where the city is?
Is it like somewhere weird, like, I don't know, Minneapolis? Like, at first I was like, oh, it's supposed to be New York, but it's not.
So I think that's one of the beautiful things about this movie.
It is a real city.
It's a real city.
Okay.
You're not in New York or LA, though.
No.
And so it's a bustling city with very tall skyscrapers, but you still feel disconcerted.
Yeah, which works as you get further in.
Because it's not a city you see on film often.
At least here.
And that's because that's Sydney, Australia.
Oh, now I feel bad.
No, it's okay. Like, so I think it worked for the film really well.
It does. Because at first it was throwing me off, but that makes sense.
That's
because
the
then once
point.
you get further in, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be thrown off.
Yeah, Fox Studios had actually just built that studio in Australia, and this was the first film filmed there. And I think it really benefits the film being a city that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
It does make me laugh, though. That totally good filmmaking on their part, and it worked to their advantage. But it does make me laugh thinking about how little American media shows anything besides just LA or New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And like, so they did want it to have a vibe, like kind of how like comic books have a feeling of like, oh, that's a city, but like what city is it? Is it New York? Is it LA? Is it Gotham? Is it Metropolis? Like these fake cities that like aren't real. And so they wanted to have that feeling of those cities and have these like grungy, like ghetto areas and things like that. But apparently they had a really hard time finding
in Australia
ghetto areas in Australia.
Ugh.
And like the graffitied areas. And they ended up having to create a lot of that themselves because there weren't these dirty, dingy places.
Sydney was too
and
clean
pieces.
for them.
Yeah.
They went to one of the people in Sydney, was like, we need your, your ghetto. And they were like, we don't have those.
We're like, we're not America.
We're not
Go back to America.
But I think it's a really cool thing that really adds to this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Another funny thing about this film that like you kind of have to remember watching this movie is that it is 99. Almost nobody had cell phones still.
Yeah.
Cell phones still weren't a big thing yet. Honestly, in America, cell phones blew up after 9/11.
Yeah.
Because everyone wanted to be able to get a hold of everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know where people were.
Yeah, because I mean, my mom has talked about that multiple times about how all of her friends were suddenly buying cell phones and none of them had ever had one.
Yeah.
Until right after that. Yeah.
So in 99, like one of the guys on the commentary was like, yeah, it was weird. And like it was weird first off that the movie like has so much cell phone usage in it. Yeah. And like so many important scenes on the cell phones and stuff. Yeah. And like it's about finding landlines and landlines are hard to find. And it's like this weird future thing. But nowadays it's like, no, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how when they got to Sydney, they were all given a cell phone by the like production company so they could all be gotten a hold of easily. And he was like, that was the first time I'd ever touched a cell phone. And like was on set for that. And then he learned that like in Sydney though, cell phones were already huge.
Oh.
So like they weren't out of place in Sydney with their cell phones, but
they would have been in America.
They would have been in America.
So just because we were talking about how as Americans we hadn't seen Sydney, Australia on film a lot, so it created this like kind of weird, different, surreal, can't quite place where you are feeling that fits it so perfectly for us.
Yeah.
You have a friend.
Yes.
From Australia, who lives in Australia.
Yeah.
He is Australian.
And he thought it was really cool to see Sydney for the first time ever. So I don't know if he got that same experience.
Yeah, but like that's more like if they filmed downtown Kansas City for a surreal sci-fi movie, I feel like it would take away from the experience a little bit. Like it'd be cool to see it, but I'd also be like, oh, I've been to that fucking coffee shop. Like, oh, I walk past it every day. It
that is how he feels.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel cool.
Although
and surreal and weird. And
in that way, though, I don't know if it would take anything away. It'd just be a different experience because for us, it was like this weird. We can't quite place it, and it's disconcerting. But for them, it's like, oh my god, the world has ended, and look what's happened to Sydney. That's where I eat coffee in the Matrix.
Like, hold on, is my coffee place the Matrix? So it's actually a different feeling.
Okay,
yeah,
in the same way.
Right. Is my world real? But yeah,
maybe it's even better.
It's just a funny, different perspective.
Because like you never see actual Kansas City in a movie.
No.
If I was watching a big mainstream,
you saw your actual
and Keanu was standing there in my hometown, I'd be like, oh god, am I in the Matrix? Like, I think it would work for me.
And then you'd be like, I don't care. I'm in a Matrix where Keanu was.
Truth. There was a ton of pre-production for this movie, obviously.
That makes sense.
One of them being all of the actors started martial arts training October of 1997 for this film.
Oh.
Wow.
And they did almost 6 months of training.
Okay.
With the Chinese crew that was just like, these soft Americans. No.
Yeah.
And Canadian, because Carrie-Anne Moss is Canadian. But
well, did they do any with Hugo Weaving? Also Australians, apparently.
Probably, yeah. They also did have to... The production ran over by quite a bit. It was scheduled for 90 days. They shot for 118 days. And they were also in Australia a lot longer than they expected to be there because...
It was just so darn beautiful.
Well, like, there were a couple of injuries that happened during it, but in weird ways.
Oh, okay.
Like, during production, Hugo Weaving ended up having like a cyst in his leg he had to get removed and he wasn't able to shoot for a really long time.
Oh, so not like he got kicked in the knee wrong in a fight scene. Just like weird.
Yeah, it was like weird shit. And like Keanu had neck surgery because of something at one point.
I've heard about that.
So for like a lot of it he like couldn't turn his neck and he like couldn't kick. Like there was all sorts of like, And so apparently Hugo and like Keanu Reeves started calling each other like the neck and the leg because like they kept delaying production for the two of them, and like
neck surgery would be horrifying.
Yeah. Neck surgery would be the worst.
Was it because he had banged too hard in a previous scene? Because that's what happened in Wayne's World, and they all hurt their necks.
I don't remember what it was, because at first I didn't think I was going to talk about it, and then I did, so I didn't write down
That's okay.
the specifics
I just wanted
injuries.
to make that joke, so we don't actually know.
She doesn't care about facts. She cares about jokes.
That's very true. That's very
That's
true.
So true. But yeah, so they were on it for forever, and it was really cute to see the behind the scenes, because they were like, yeah, it really felt like a family, like we all came together, and it's like, that's so fun.
118 days is a long time.
That's all.
Yeah, and like it was so cute because the Chinese stunt crew, they do a whole like pig roast ceremony first day of set for good luck and stuff for all of their stuff, and there's like behind the scenes where you could see their whole like pig roast ceremony, and there's all these blessings and stuff that they do. Awesome. And I was like, that's so cool.
It works.
I know. It got it through all this.
Yeah.
So I talk about all this to mention one funny thing about Keanu Reeves and his wire work.
Okay.
And it's so subtle, and it's so little, and you don't notice it, and it even like watching it knowing just looks like a thing that's happening and you don't even really notice. But obviously all the flips and stuff is wire work.
Mm-hmm.
If you look really closely, every time Keanu does like one of his backflips, you can see him. He starts to lean back, and then with both of his hands, he grabs the wire. And you can see him grab the wires. They pan out the wires, obviously.
But you see him make fists.
His hands come to his sides exactly like perfectly where wires would be, and kind of hold a little bit. And it's so cool to see. I don't know why, I just love it.
But like if you don't like that hand movement of his arms coming around and kind of closing a little bit isn't necessarily not just like a...
But if you watch it...
Okay, I didn't notice it, so
you
I
can
can't.
tell.
I'll have to look again.
The best one is, if you're going to go back and watch it, I think the best one is the train sequence right after he goes, "My name is Neo," and he jumps up and smashes him into the wall. And then as he jumps away from the train and the train hits Agent Smith.
When he's flipping out of the train.
When he flips out of the train's way. That one, you can really see the grab. He also does it in the dojo scene.
That's hilarious.
It's really...
You don't notice it at all, though, when you're caught up in it, because I did not see it at all.
I kind of love moments like that in movies, though, where it's like something that no matter how many times they did it, they couldn't stop it, and you can still see it happening, sort of like in Star Wars, when you can still see the bits where they're saying, pew, as they, like, shoot someone. Yeah. It's like, it makes it more lovable.
Because he wasn't a wire...
Wire-fu?
A wire-fu master. He was just a wire-fu novice.
Yeah, he's a student of wire-fu.
Yeah, he did a really good job, though.
He does a great job.
They all did a great job.
But, like, I was watching a different stunt person talk about it, and talk about how, like, it is a really hard habit to break, because your body wants to grab for something for support.
Yeah.
And you just have to think about the fact that they're not there. You have to remind yourself that they're not there.
Yeah. The spoon is not there.
There is no spoon.
There's no spoon.
Bend yourself. There is no wire.
There is no wire. That's hilarious.
Can you imagine being like the paint out artist that is doing it and then be like, oh my God,
he fucking grabbed it again.
Grabbed it? This was going to be a simple paint out.
I can 100% imagine that as in just being an editor, that sometimes you are just like, they really like the stuff you have to edit around.
There's like those little things that actors do that you're like, you ruined my life.
It's funny when you are the actor that you're editing, though.
Yes.
Because we've all been there where you're like, why did I do that?
Yep. Yeah, so that is all the trivia I have for The Matrix. There's obviously really tons more you can look into.
Yeah, we said you could talk about it for 1,000 years.
You really could. You could go for forever just about the philosophy. You could go forever just about the stunts. You could go forever just about the visual effects.
Yeah.
You go forever just talking about how great all these actors are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this, I love this movie.
Yeah.
I do too. I love it a lot. It did blow me away first time I saw it. I know it didn't for Amber.
It blew me away too. But so I'll tell you my first time seeing this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first time ever seeing this movie, and probably part of like why I love it so much, is as a little kid, obviously like movies were a big part of my life. And I watched a bunch of movies, and my dad showed me a bunch of movies. And then eventually I got a TV in my own room.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing.
When you weren't allowed to watch R movies for a really
I wasn't
long
allowed to
time.
watch R-rated movies as a kid for like ever. I just wasn't until I moved out at 21. No, until I just started buying them and not telling my parents.
Sure.
But there was a small, so there was the regular bookshelf of movies in my house, and then there was a small shelf off to the side that had like the parents' movies, quote unquote.
Gotcha.
And they're like the R-rated movies, and movies we weren't supposed to watch.
Yeah.
So the movies we could watch any movie on the bookshelf, we couldn't watch the movies on the one other shelf.
So obviously
you wanted to go to the other shelf.
So the moment I got a TV in my own room, I stole The Matrix off of the shelf of movies I wasn't supposed to watch. And that's the copy of The Matrix we watched today.
Nice.
I still have that copy that I stole
really
from my parents.
cute.
And I watched it and it blew my fucking mind. Like I'd never seen a movie like this.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen a movie that was just like had so much action and was like so like cerebral, and it was sci-fi, and like I'd never seen a character flip off another character in a movie, and that moment blew my mind. And then he fucking lost his mouth. Like this movie blew my fucking mind as probably like a 12, 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And then like eventually like I was like, well, there are 2 more of these. I need them. And like it took me a while to get the other 2 because like my parents don't watch R-rated movies and they wouldn't buy me R-rated movies.
Yeah.
So like I eventually found a person at a local video store that would sell me R-rated movies, and that person fucking saved my life.
Oh, man.
That was Patrick's Teenage
Shout
Rebellion.
out.
Was
Shout out for getting
yeah,
Patrick
for
Matrix.
real.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I love these movies. I love all 3 of them. I watched them a billion times in my bedroom. Like, yeah, my Teenage Rebellion was watching The Matrix.
I mean, I thought it was really good, and I really do want to see the next 2 because I really liked the moment at the end where he suddenly like
He flies.
he gets it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of you acting like that.
Overpowered as fuck Keanu.
Okay, so this is, I'm going to call myself out. I kind of love overpowered characters.
Oh, God, yeah.
I know a lot of people complain about it, but every film I've ever seen where I'll like talk to someone else and they're like, yeah, but they just got too overpowered. I'm like, no. Give it to me. I love watching overpowered characters.
Like,
and like his acting even in the moment where he figures out like, oh no. I don't.
It's like
this is
it's a
whatever. It's code.
not-
when he
and the
literally
like look on his
stands up
face.
Yeah.
and just goes, no.
Yeah.
And then he stops all the bullets.
It's great.
And then when he flexes and the world flexes instead of him, like, oh.
Yeah, that moment I think was
great.
the moment that blew my mind. I loved that moment and getting
Yeah.
to that moment. So then I think I was also kind of like, oh man, now it's over. So like I want to see the next 2. I want to see that. I want to see him being
Next
overpowered.
3 now.
Yeah, next 3 now.
Yeah, a lot of people rag on the next 2, and like I get the complaints, and especially 2 gets like a lot of trash. I fucking love 2. I don't care. I love it so much.
Is it because he's overpowered and people don't like that?
No, there's some wacky shit.
Oh, well, that makes sense though. We were already going in that direction.
Yeah, it gets wild.
Well, don't spoil anything for her or our listeners.
Yeah, let's just start watching the next ones. Oh man, but no, I do. I love this movie. I love it so much.
Me too.
It was really
too.
And I'm
good.
so glad to have shown it to you, and I'm so
Yeah.
stoked to watch more Matrix.
Gotta get through them all so you can see it in theaters. See the new one.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you for subscribing, liking, leaving a comment of movies you think we should do in the future. Thank you, Amber, for being here.
Thank you for having me on yet again.
I think the cats were less of terrors this time until we got close to the end.
Yeah, and if you're a huge fan of us and you want to support all the things we do, if you want to support the sketches and all of that, besides subscribing to us on YouTube, where this podcast will not be anymore.
Correct.
And if you want exclusive content, including exclusive podcast episodes and access to 3 of our feature films, head on over to patreon.com/ixfilmproductions.
Please do.
All right, I love you.
Love you.
Love you all. Bye.
Jiu-jitsu? I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu?
There is no spoon.